So, I mean, there's going to be a potential crisis here coming up in August for housing needs, and a crisis also for landlords as to how much longer they're going to be able to float their homes without getting it back and being able to receive rental income.
That's a really important point. I mean, and I think it sort of speaks to the need for both landlords and tenants to avoid getting caught up in this backlog, to try to take advantage of the services that are out there. And again, not to overly plug HAC, but to give us a call and maybe there's something that we can do through one of our assistance programs that can help get a tenant back on their feet and potentially avoid having to kind of wait in this backlog and deal with a negative situation.
Oh, you guys, Dave, you guys are going to play a real critical role in this. And your phones are going to be ringing, your emails are going to be going crazy, because you're really the only housing assistance corporation
right
on the Cape to deal with this. So you're going to be a key player in the game to help work both parties, both landlords and tenants, get through this really difficult time.
Yeah. And I feel like we've been talking a lot about sort of the negative things that can happen. So I feel like any landlord that's listening, or someone considering being a landlord, there are a lot of positive reasons to become a landlord, and that's actually the most of what we do at HAC is working with tenants to make sure, and I'm sure most of what you do is working with landlords to make sure they don't end up in this kind of situation.
That's correct.
So I'm going to get to that in a second, but to kind of finish up this segment where we're talking about evictions and what to do when things go wrong. Tell me, do landlords always need to contact an attorney? If they've never had this happen before and they've never worked with an attorney on an eviction, do you have any? Just obviously, this is your business, so I'm sure that's always advisable if they can. But what are sort of the guidelines about when to bring in an attorney versus when to maybe deal with it on their own? Do you have any general recommendations that you typically give landlords?
Yeah, it's a little tricky to do it on your own. I mean, obviously, some landlords are pretty savvy, and there's some online information out there that some of it's accurate that landlords have used, and they've done it on their own. I will say that if the landlord is a corporation, the corporation landlord cannot legally represent itself in court for eviction. So there, that's a requirement.
Very aware of that, yeah.
But can an individual landlord do it? Yes, they can, but it's still advisable to at least talk with an attorney before you do it, because if a landlord makes one misstep, an innocent misstep on a notice to quit or notice to terminate, or doesn't get the document served right by accident, and then they're in court on the day of their hearing, a little minor misstep can can force the landlord to redo the whole thing again, and then they've lost months. So it's probably not advisable for landlords to do it by themselves. It's certainly possible. Everyone has the right to represent themselves. But just with landlord-tenant law, it's usually an emergency. I need this property back as soon as I can. Yep. And it's just a shame for landlords to find out 2 months down the road in court that, oops, I didn't get good service, or, oops, my notice had the wrong language in it. And, I just try to help clients avoid those pitfalls at the onset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that's a good segue. We've talked a lot about the things that can go wrong and what to do in those situations. And obviously that's all being impacted by the current moratorium and COVID-19.
Right.
But so much of what HAC does and what you do is really working with landlords and people considering being landlords to think through and really plan ahead so that they never have to be in the situation where they have to go through an eviction. Occasionally it might be unavoidable, but this is something we've been working hard to be able to provide as a resource to landlords. And the reason that we started this program that HAC runs called Rent 365, which is a program that provides some financial incentives to people who want to try becoming a year-round landlord for the first time. So it gives new landlords on Cape Cod $1,000 of an incentive. And we also help them think through best practices in terms of tenant selection, what types of documents they're using. You've been very instrumental in giving some consultations to some of our Rent 365 clients, just so they're aware of what the Massachusetts landlord tenant laws are. And so I haven't been a landlord for long, but I've learned a lot from you over the last couple of years about the importance of planning and just knowing and having a plan and sticking to that plan. And so I'm pretty sure you'd agree with that. And
I would, sure.
I'll put you on the spot here, but do you have maybe someone who's thinking of becoming a landlord, has never done it before? Do you have a quick couple of what are the key things, like the 3 things that maybe you would recommend to them that they need to really make sure that they consider before moving forward? I know I have, what I think I would recommend, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts. If someone comes to you and says, listen, I have this summer home, I'm really tired of doing it as an Airbnb.
Right.
I want to become a year-round landlord. I think it might actually make financial sense, but I keep hearing that it's tough to be a landlord. What should I do?
And let me just say that the HAC 365 program has been an incredible success. Thanks to
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
and HAC's efforts. I mean, it's gotten rave reviews and it's got a lot of activity and participation.
We've converted about 25 units of new housing on the Cape to year-round rentals that weren't year-round before, and and to give some perspective, in order to do that with new construction, you're looking at $250,000, $300,000 per unit. So to be able to use our existing housing stock to create new year-round housing is great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so to answer your question, what do I advise a landlord to do? Renting a property long-term it's a good move for landlords. It's a good investment. And as long as you do your due diligence in the beginning and you properly screen a tenant, you're going to put yourself in a good position for success, and you're going to try to avoid those headaches and avoid the evictions and all that stuff that goes with it. So, first things first, landlords should have a really good due diligence process and policy in place. That is a good rental application that asks obviously for landlord references. You can ask for employee references, but landlord references. You need to do a credit check. You need to do a criminal background check. Those are just easy, no-brainer things that landlords should do. And just a little pitfall, a little side note for landlords. Landlords like to kind of run credit reports and then charge the tenant for running a credit. Charge the tenant for the credit report fee. You can't do that out there, landlords. You can't pass the fee on. That's
Right.
the cost of doing business for landlords. But in any event, you also bring on a new tenant. You have to have a good lease. If you have a good, strong lease that protects the landlord in the event of a problem, that's obviously going to put the landlord in a more stronger position should something go wrong. And one of the other, biggest things they have to do, landlords have to do, is running an eviction check on a tenant, and that's not hard to do. There's companies out there that will actually do this for a landlord. That'll screen them with credit, criminal checks, eviction checks, which actually run across the country. But it's very easy for a landlord just to simply, go online or go to each one of the district court offices here on the Cape and run the tenant's name in the computer and see if they show up, as having prior evictions or prior small claims, any matters that may involve financial issues. So that's kind of a really easy thing landlords can do. And as long as those basic policies and steps are taken, that's going to be half the battle right there to get a good, reliable, stable tenant in your home.
Exactly, and I think, and the other thing that I always reiterate with new landlords is how important it is to be consistent with how you're screening people. I think.
Right.
I think there's a tendency sometimes for people to select their tenants just sort of based on gut and how they felt when they met them. And there might be something to that, but at HAC we always have a very clear criteria. This is how much the unit costs. This is therefore how much we expect to see the income to be able to afford it. You're going to need to pass a credit check of a certain amount, and you can set that whatever you want it to be, and also pass a background check, have good references, all of those things, and then we screen tenants as they come in. And we select them only based on those completely objective criteria. So I think that's really important. And you also mentioned the fees for credit checks. That's something I see a lot out there on advertising of units, is where landlords are asking tenants to pay application fees and credit check fees. And like you said, that's not something that they can be doing. What on the flip side, though, if you're going to credit check every single person that applies, it can get pretty expensive.
It can.
So,
That's true.
so one thing that we try to do at HAC and that helps with that is that it has to have a basic screening that we do a basic screening before we have them submit a full application and for a full credit check, just to see if it's a good fit before we go any further. And that's really good for the tenant to know if there would be a good candidate, and for us as well. So it's all those just basic questions. But on the Cape, as a landlord, if you post a listing, especially if it's at a really attractive price point, you're going to get a lot of inquiries, and so you really need to have a plan in place to make sure that it goes smoothly and that you're following the law. And to plug for your services, it's always great to have an attorney take a look at it, even if it's a quick look, to make sure that the plan you have is and the documents that you have are good to go.
Yeah, and you know that if any landlord that comes through and participates in the Rent 365 program, I'm happy to donate my services and provide the landlord with a free 30-minute consultation to kind of walk them through the process and to answer any questions they may have initially about lease agreement and kind of the do's and don'ts of being a landlord on the Cape, especially.
Yeah, and that's been a huge help. I think a lot of people, especially new landlords, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the Rent 365 program. Just having somebody that they can, even if they're very competent, having somebody that they can say, "Am I missing anything? Like, please let me know if I'm missing anything. Am I doing anything illegal here?" And so I think that's really important. So thank you for offering that service. It's been a great help to us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You guys do great work.
Before we finish up, is there anything else that you'd like to add to say to landlords or tenants that may be listening, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic?
I would say just keep informed, landlords and tenants. Watch Charlie Baker, our governor's updates routinely on these issues. Keep checking with the MassGov website, and the Department of Housing and Community Development routinely comes out with COVID-19 updates as it relates to eviction issues. So just try to stay informed as best we can as we march towards this August 18th date, which may or may not move. There may be new laws coming into effect that will impact what we're talking about now today. So I think that's the best they can do, is just to stay informed as best as they can. And again, if anything emergent rises up in the meantime, we talked about these essential evictions. It's important to figure out whether or not you've got the capability to take immediate action before August 18th.
Great. Well, and then the only other thing I'd add is that HAC is going to try to continue to keep people updated on these issues as well as they change. Obviously, it's an ever-changing situation right now. So please check out our website, which is HAC on capecod.org. There's information, landlord education information, and also links to apply to our Workforce Housing Relief Fund, which is a program that I mentioned that's available for any tenant who's struggling to pay rent because of a COVID-19 related situation. And that's actually open to incomes of all different levels. So it's not just lower income individuals. It's people who maybe had no problems paying rent up until recently, and then just due to the situation, work situation or something, it's changed. So please check out that website. Well, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your time today. This is great. You're a great resource for us, and I'm sure for all your clients. And so hopefully people find this useful.
Oh, thank you, David. I really appreciate it. Thanks for organizing this and getting it off the ground. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.